The next question is on eminent domain. It, we're against them. We're con. Okay. It has been said that New York State has the worst record of eminent domain abuse in this country. It is one of the few states that did not strengthen its eminent domain laws after the Supreme Court Kalo versus New London decision. How do you see the AG's office addressing eminent domain abuse? Ms. Rice.
This is a tough crowd. There's one right answer and one wrong answer, I suppose. But the job of the Attorney General, you're going to hear people come up and advocate, and they're going to have very strong opinions. The job is that there has to be a balance. The balance of development versus the interests of the community. And the Attorney General comes out on the side of advocating for supports the community advocating for themselves. And I think that that's the issue here. This is a very touchy issue here with everything that's been going on in Brooklyn and all around the city and in areas where we deal with it too out in Nassau County. So again, it's a balance. And that's the job of the Attorney General, to advocate on behalf of people in situations like this. And that's what I would do.
Yes, Mr. Schneider.
Yes, thank you. I agree about balance, but there's no question the law right now is heavily out of balance. I disagree with the New London decision. I'm a sponsor of legislation in the Senate that would change the eminent domain laws to stop this business of private interests being able to use public powers to enhance their own well-being. And look, I don't have objections to the concept of eminent domain, but that's supposed to be for the public good, right? That's like if you have to build a bridge between two communities that benefit the people, you know, you may have to take some land. The idea was not to get land so someone can build a mega development or a shopping mall or something else. This is just completely out of balance. Now, the Attorney General's office, first of all, the next Attorney General, because the Democrats now are in control, and I will argue, I think persuasively, that we, in spite of all the troubles, we're going to stay in control. The next Attorney General's ability to move program bills, which is a part of the Attorney General's function, is going to be greater than it's ever been, or in recent history. This is the first time, this last year was the first time since 1937 the Democrats had held the Assembly, the Senate, and the Governor's Mansion. So our opportunity to really enact reforms, progressive democratic reforms, is new. I would move program bills to correct this, and I would enforce them rigorously. Also, the Attorney General can also just conduct investigations into the way these projects are carried out. Because even if they are technically complying with some of the laws, I assure you there are other issues that can be raised by an Attorney General willing to look aggressively at the way these folks are proceeding. But the most fundamental issue is this is not a close question. The New London decision was a terrible decision by a conservative Supreme Court. At the state level, we can take action to correct that. And I'm sorry to say, you know, in Brooklyn, this is what a lot of people in other parts of the state are pointing to say, if they can do this in Brooklyn, and you all have fought hard and long about this issue, and it's been a tough struggle, but the example here is what is held up to advocates all around the state of what we do not want. So I'm going to fight as hard as I can for it. I sponsored the bill, and if it isn't passed this year, when I'm the Attorney General, that'll be a program bill from my office. Thank you.
5 years ago, before, or more, 7 years ago, I passed the first bill to reform the eminent domain system before the Brooklyn issue came up, because it had occurred in my county. And I've had an opportunity over the course of years to talk and work with Councilmember James on the Brooklyn issues, and with members of the community, some of whom I see here in the audience. But I want to be very clear. I have a very specific agenda for how to reform the eminent domain laws. But what I would urge this community and advocates to avoid is any redefinition of those laws that allow blight to be a characteristic of what allows eminent domain laws to be powers to be exercised. Blight, as we say in the old country, is Yiddish for poor people. And if you start focusing any reform effort on blighted communities, you're just going to get more of the same. Now, the fact of the matter is that the Supreme Court decision in Kelo was not a decision by the right wing of the court. It was a decision by the left wing of the court, which was opposed by Scalia and Thomas and that wing of the court. The problem was never the decision. The problem was the state laws that essentially allowed a legislative body to transfer private property from one private person to another private person in the name of the public good. It's baloney. The method, the instrumentalities of that transfer are called public authorities. And we may, I hope, get a chance, since I have 30 seconds, to point out that the only fundamental large reform of all of the institutions in the last 30 years came out of my shop, building on the work of Al Van, when we passed the Authority Reform Bill, which no longer would make the Hudson Yards and Atlantic Yards transactions possible. The fight about eminent domain, in the end, is a political fight. Yes, it's important that you have a candidate who knows what the eminent domain rules are, but you've also need to have a candidate who will apply those laws in the political process and stop rich people from screwing poor people.
Mr. Dinella.
I agree that when I was in law school, it was pretty clear that eminent domain was about the ability of the government to seize property at a certain market price to advance the public good, and it is now transformed into sort of a private-to-private interest, which to me is a complete change from what the court had intended and what I was taught. And what I would do is, I think I would use the appeals and opinions section of the Attorney General's office to issue a revisitation of it. So I think the office now has such prominence both in the state and across the country that I would issue an opinion that would explore this again and disagree with it pretty clearly, and then lead that into sort of a signaling of a potential lawsuit around getting the laws changed, and an approach that I think should include returning it back to more of a public enterprise condition proceeding and not a private taking.
Mr. Coffey.
Well, I think we all agree that the Supreme Court decision was a bad one, and it's one of a number of decisions that many of us would disagree with. The question is what to do about it, and legislative action is the preferred route, and I support the notion of trying to restore the right balance between a public taking of private property for the public good. That's what it should be about. But I think it's a symptom of a larger problem. Why don't we have that law in the books? There are a lot of things that aren't getting done in Albany. They're just not getting done, and why not? The machinery of government in Albany isn't working, and we need to change it. We need to have new blood up there, and somebody from the outside, a number of people. We have a very, very successful and talented Attorney General who we hope will be our governor. He's going to need help. And I think what he needs is somebody who has effected change elsewhere. And I was able to do that on Wall Street in connection with many of the cases I took on. I took on the most powerful interests in this country. In the WorldCom case, 17 investment banks, Goldman Sachs. And they tried to crush my little team with the best law firms in the country and lots of them. And we took them to trial and got the $6 billion. We were very, very tough. You need an agent of change. Just rotating people from seat A to seat B in Albany isn't going to get you the kind of results you need on eminent domain and all sorts of other issues. And so I'm running because I think we need something very, very different up there. Somebody who's been a success in the private sector who's saying, you know what, I'm going to leave the comfort of the private sector to come in and help affect change. And so eminent domain is one example. Why hasn't it been fixed? There are a whole bunch of things that haven't been fixed. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. It's time for something very, very different, and I believe that I offer not only something very, very different, but a very, very experienced lawyer who's taken on tough assignments and is ready for the toughest assignment of all, which is helping reform Albany.